Hi, I'm Wendy from shinyhappyworld.com, and today we're going to talk about using your iron. The iron is actually the most dangerous tool in the sewing room. I've never had a student hurt themselves on the sewing machine, but I have had students burn themselves on the iron. The important thing to remember is that all of the metal part is hot. That includes the sides. And when you're ironing and steam is coming out the sides, if your finger is even close to the side, the steam is going to come out and can burn you. This is a steam iron, and you're definitely going to want to use a steam iron. One thing that I do that's just a good maintenance thing for your steam iron, see these little holes all around here? That's where the steam comes out. And those can get gunked up with minerals if you don't use clean water. And I use some filtered water that run it through a kitchen filter. That's what I use in my iron, and that just helps keep that mineral buildup down. If you do get some on there, you can use plain white vinegar to clean it off. There's two things that you're going to do with your iron: ironing and pressing, and those are actually two different processes. Ironing is what you do to your fabric before you start sewing with it. It's moving the iron back and forth across the fabric to smooth all the wrinkles out. And you definitely want to iron everything before you start cutting your patterns out. It's going to make everything just go a lot better. So that's ironing. Pressing does not involve rubbing the iron back and forth. Once you've cut a shape out and you've got diagonal lines that are running across the grain, and you start doing this with it, you can stretch that line out. So a line that started out 6 inches, a cut edge on your fabric that started out 6 inches, once you run that iron down it and spread it out, it could end up 6.5 inches. And that is going to mess things up. So once you cut all your pieces out and start sewing, what you're going to do is pressing instead. Pressing is exactly what it sounds like. You set the iron down and press, and very little movement back and forth. You're not pushing against the grain in a way that could stretch the fabric out. You're going to do two basic things with seams. I've got a little test piece of fabric here that I sewed with a seam. Most of the time, you're going to press the seam to one side or the other. If the instructions don't specify and you're making a garment, you want to press it toward the back of the garment. If you're making a stuffed animal or a craft project, you always want to press it toward the darker fabric, unless the instructions tell you otherwise. I laid everything flat, pressed it, I finger pressed it. That actually has a name. It's called finger pressing, to push that down a little bit. And then I set the iron down on it and press it flat. So now that seam is going to be nice and flat. The other thing you sometimes need to do is press a seam open. So here's another little sample I've got. You pull those pieces apart. You're going to do this from the back. And again, with your fingers, press that seam open a little bit. See how I'm opening up the seam allowance? And then again, I'm not putting any pressure on that iron until I get it all laid flat. So that seam is pressed open. So that's it. Pressing versus ironing. You iron before you cut any pieces out. After you cut your pattern pieces out, you only press until you've got all of those seams stabilized with either a line of stitching or with a hem. And after your garment is finished, you can go back to ironing it to smooth it. The only other thing to remember, stay away from the hot metal and also from the steam that comes shooting out the side. Be careful with your iron. I'm Wendy, and you can find me at shinyhappyworld.com. Next time we're going to talk about cutting out patterns.